I phoned him just before the program and I said, Leslie, it's been great. You've been great. The network has been great, but I'm retiring.
This is really?
Yep.
This is true. This is, you actually did this?
Yes, I did.
Wow. Well,
thank you very much. And what this means now is that Paul and I can be married.
Good morning, everyone.
Wow, going out the way you came in.
Exactly. Oh, my goodness. It's Friday, April 4th. Can you believe this?
No.
With us on set, we have Washington anchor for BBC World News America, Katty Kay, who has an incredible book coming out. And if you pre-order it, you get a free webinar. That's good marketing.
What? Free weapon. She said
no, webinar.
Webinar.
Joe, listen.
For me, what?
Clean out your ears.
It's the confidence code.
Oh, you told me I could get the shotgun one.
Right now.
What is a webinar exactly?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
It's actually really useful,
It's like a lecture.
especially if you're a woman.
It's
and
like
you
an
have
online lecture. And then people can
like
ask
a
you
TED
questions.
Talk,
It's like
Only if you pre-order, Willie.
But it's,
I will.
It's questions too. It's interactive.
Oh, cool. All right. I'm in.
Okay, good.
It's not a weapon.
I'll take a shot.
We also have the president and the CEO of Politico in Capital, New York.
I definitely now.
Power.
And in Washington, MSNBC
Jim Van
political analyst and former chairman of the Republican National Committee, Michael. You know, Mika, I was telling a friend last week that one of the great, I mean, you look back, you don't know what you have when you have it, as Joni Mitchell said, you know? You don't know what you've got till it's gone. I was thinking back about how in entertainment, one of the, I think, miracles of entertainment was that for an entire generation, they had Johnny Carson every night.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who, if he did the show one night a week, it would have been just a remarkable gift. But that he did that for as long as he did was just absolutely stunning. And you've got to put David Letterman, who, of course, Carson was David Letterman's hero, in the same category. It's just the fact that the fact that we've had him for as long as we've had him. And I see you smiling. I'm completely sincere. This is. I mean, I put him right up there as far as entertainment goes with like the Beatles.
Oh, I'm not laughing.
People that have shaped,
I totally agree
shaped
with you.
our lives.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's shaped our comedy culture like nobody.
Oh my gosh! And I've never I'm trying to think. I've never been more nervous in my life because he is so funny and he's so cutting that to go on the show with him, you've got to be ready. But only one more year, I guess. David Letterman stunned his studio audience and a lot of people around the country when he announced his run on late-night TV is coming to an end.
Sometime in the not too distant future, 2015, for the love of God. In fact, Paul and I will be wrapping things up and taking a hike. Thank you. Thanks to everybody.
So when he completes his run, David Letterman will be officially the longest-serving host in late-night TV history. It all started so long ago when he was just 19 years old, making $150 a week as a weatherman and a booth announcer.
I was just laughing because they showed that picture of Bill Murray. Bill Murray, I remember, was his first guest.
Oh, my
And he
Lord.
just leaned and he said, "I'm going to make your life a living hell, Letterman!" and David couldn't keep it together.
Brilliant
It was
man.
so funny.
His stand-up comedy landed him his own late-night show on NBC. He was working in the shadows of Johnny Carson, the great. But then they gave Johnny's throne to Jay Leno, which had Letterman jump to rival CBS, and there was this huge late-night rivalry.
Why don't I just start off with a question here? Just how pissed off are you? A friend of yours is taking over here next May, and you.
Well, I'm sorry. What did you say?
I said.
You know,
oh my gosh.
Letterman wasn't the only one pissed off at that.
Right.
I mean, Carson absolutely loved David Letterman.
I didn't get it.
The feelings were mutual.
But Letterman did just fine. He carved out his own niche, sometimes very biting, very kooky, and of course there was those top 10 lists.
Number 9.
What's up, gangsters? It's the MI double tizzle.
Number 5, confused stare.
Number 3, oh, look at this. No, number 3, stolen by OJ. And the number 1 sign Barack Obama is overconfident, been cruising for chicks with John Edwards. There you go.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my Lord. So, of course, there were controversies along the way. There was all the tabloid reports, an affair, attempted blackmail by a producer. I think one of the biggest moments in sort of the darker side of things was when he was forced to apologize for comments about Sarah Palin's daughter, but he did it his way.
One awkward moment for Sarah Palin at the Yankee game. During the 7th inning, her daughter was knocked up by Alex Rodriguez. Am I guilty of poor taste? Yes. Did I suggest that it was okay for her 14-year-old daughter to be having promiscuous sex? No.
Willie, just, I mean, you can't even put it in words. I mean, what David Letterman has meant to comedy, what he's meant to late night.
As you try to measure it, a good way to do it is to watch the reaction yesterday of comedians. And I mean, almost every comedian worshiped David Letterman.
Yeah.
Jimmy Kimmel, Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, Judd Apatow, all these guys. This is an entire generation of comedians
He shaped the generation.
who looked up to him as the guy who, they didn't only think he was funny, they thought his whole ethos, his way of doing comedy, his view of the world was the way they wanted to look at the world. You know, he was absurd, he was ironic, he was all those things everybody has said. And he had no patience for the medium of TV. And we see it, I would argue, even on our show, where you sort of tear down the wall and you laugh at the conventions of television a little bit. He started that on network television. There's an interview online that people should go watch on YouTube where he had Paris Hilton on probably 5-6 years ago. And she came on, as she said, to talk about her movie and her new fragrance line. And all he did for 8 minutes was ask her questions about being in prison. What was the food like? And she was furious and she was steaming and she was giving one-word answers, and she said, I've moved past that. And Dave said, well, I haven't. So, and someone in the crowd screams out, I love you, Paris. She goes, I love you, too. And he said, somebody you met in prison? And but it was that, and, you know, not to pick on her, but it was, he didn't want to talk about your movie or your perfume line. He wanted to
If he didn't feel like
well,
it.
that was him. I mean, he didn't do movie clips.
Right.
He didn't play the game. And what we always, and we've around this table, and I'm sure, you know, we were, like everybody, influenced by him. But one of the things we did at the very beginning of the show is, following up on what you said, is whenever people would come on and say, well, where do I look? What camera do I look at? I say, you don't look at a camera. We don't play TV here. The only thing you can do wrong in the show is to play TV. And you talk about the ethos. That was all David Letterman.
Yeah.
He tore down the wall. He tore down the facade.
He did, and Jerry Seinfeld was quoted in, I think, the AP story that's going around. And he said Letterman was the only one who's succeeded at changing the format, like acknowledging the fact that, yes, there are cue cards over there, and yes, we rehearsed this, and, you know, he tore down that wall and didn't do all the old, like, Borscht Belt humor and that kind of thing. He acknowledged that what he was doing was kind of ridiculous, and sometimes the jokes that he missed were as funny as the ones that he landed because of the way he reacted.
And that's the genius. Caddy, there were a lot of times the jokes were just really bad. And I would sit there and be laughing just as hard if they were really good. Where did he learn that from? Well, the only other guy that was phenomenal with jokes that missed, and that's Johnny Carson, who was actually even funnier when the jokes didn't hit. He
had the ability to turn the joke on himself.
Right.
To be like that, but I can see why you were scared going on the show, because he also had this ability to put people in the hot seat and not let them off. And you know how television's an X-ray. You do see what people's nature is, and he was prepared to push them. And if you couldn't respond to it with the same kind of humor and go with him with it, you came out.
Well, we've got a picture.
Bad.
So David Letterman asked what some of the things that she did when she was growing up, and Mika said, well, one big event at our house was we had Deng Xiaoping for dinner, and his response was, I bet that was delicious.
I'll tell you, And you know, I was obsessing all day, sweating. I was so nervous. I got out there, I was so nervous. I've never been more nervous in someone's presence. And he just asked me something about crazy childhood stories, and I blurted out the most inappropriate thing about seeing Jimmy Carter in a Speedo or something. All nerves, just pouring out of my, because there's something about his presence, and also when you meet someone that funny, you know they're that smart. You know they're that smart, and they can do whatever they want. It's interesting. I've never.
And you can't try and be funny back.
So can I ask?
Survive it. That's all.
I want to ask you really quickly about. There's a lot of British humor that Americans don't get. Do Brits get David Letterman?
Yeah.
They do get that.
Yes, they get.
Because it doesn't.
Jon Stewart, for example, huge.
Right, Jon
in the
Stewart,
UK.
Yeah.
Letterman, huge. Similarly, and I think it's that biting quality.
Right.
British humor is often a bit darker, a bit more acerbic, a bit more cynical.
Acerbic, yeah.
And I think that Letterman has that. So he was popular in the UK in the way that Jon Stewart is now popular. Every kid I know watches Jon Stewart.
You know, it's one of the fascinating things about him too was it was a generational shift, because I remember my parents, friends, even 10 years after he was on, I remember older people saying, and I'm sure you heard this, Willie, people that you loved and you respected looking at David Letterman going, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Why is that funny?
Yeah.
And you would try to explain why it was funny. It was a revolution, and everything that followed. And Jerry Seinfeld would say it, and all the comedians that followed would say it. Everything that followed was shaped by David Letterman, just like all the music that followed February 1964 in America was shaped by the Beatles. And a big part of that was, it was such a shift that older Americans, most older Americans, just didn't get it.
Yeah, my dad got it. I don't think his parents would have got it. My dad was a Midwestern guy like Dave, totally got him. And so Dave was the guy in our house, and he remains that. One other thing I would point to is his response after 9/11. Just go watch that. No script, no monologue. He comes out, I guess, 6 days after 9/11, and if you watch it right now, you'll cry again, you'll get chills again. Yes, the news did a good job with it, but Dave Letterman in that moment was as big as anybody in this country responding to September 11th.
And actually after Newtown, he did the same thing. He had that moment of being, of dropping the veil of irony and being very serious and speaking directly to the people about that.
All right, let's get to some other news of the morning. Majority